Welcome to my review of Iron Tank for the NES. This is another SNK game. They had some really good games on the system. I really liked POW for the NES. It's not a game I hear about that much, but to me, I always really enjoyed that game. When I was young, it was real difficult for me, but later on when I did beat it, I really appreciated it. It was cool to see the entire game. But yeah, this is another game by SNK, and this is a pretty unique game. It's almost like a survival horror tank game in a way, because it's you have slow tank-like movement, obviously, because it's a fucking tank, and you can you have to aim your turret kind of slowly, so it adds an extra tactical aspect to the game, and there's also an ammo conservation kind of effect to it, because you have these more powerful types of ammo like this V-shot, and various letters you pick up give you these different ammo types, and once you waste them, they're gone, so you can get yourself in bad spots where you don't have good ammo for hard parts. So there's a little bit of that ammo conservation kind of vibe in the game, and you got your tank-like controls, like a survival horror game. I guess that's a weird way to fucking describe a tank game, but it does have some slow aspects to it for a action game that you would think would be more fast-paced. So it actually gives it a different flavor than a lot of action games on the NES that are much more fast-paced. I thought it was interesting, but it does work against itself sometimes with the real slower type of tactical controls. Some parts are kind of a fuckfest to try to maneuver through. I mean, I did figure out and beat the game because I only review games that I completed. And a lot of them that I review, I have tutorials on, so I'm going to link my tutorial to this game, in the description. So that should help navigate some of the bullshit, but it is quite a difficult game. It's not an easy game. I believe it took me around 7 hours to beat off memory, but definitely not an easy game. It has some very hard and very dense parts. You can take a pretty good amount of damage. You have unlimited continues and passwords, so you can just keep working at it until you master each segment. But you do have to go pretty far before getting to the next checkpoint a lot of times. One interesting mechanic about this game is that all the different weapon types that you pick up, the different letters are your various different types of weapons. Some of them are like faster shots, like a machine gun type of effect. Some of them are like spread shot, I believe. You got all these different types of weapons. The interesting thing about it is that when you press start, you go into this this menu that shows all your weapons, and you can they have check marks next to them, basically. If you fill in the check marks, you can fill in all the fucking check marks if you want. It means you'll fire all your ammo types at the same time. So basically what you're doing is you're draining all your ammo all at once, which is, very reckless if you don't know what you're doing, because you could waste all your good weapons all at once. They'll all fire at the same time. But on the other hand, it's brutally fucking powerful against bosses if you know what you're doing. So it's a cool kind of risk-reward type of mechanic. Pretty cool. There's also multiple paths. Like you see here, I took this path with the mine. I ran over the mine and took the damage. That was a more effective path for me in this scenario than going another route where there was more enemies and shit to deal with. So there are different paths in the levels that you can kind of take, which is cool. It's kind of unique. Not a lot of NES games let you take different paths in levels. So there's a lot of really cool things about this game that I really like. It is a little repetitive with the environments. There's not a lot of different environment types. But the gameplay is pretty damn engaging because of all the different things that go on as you travel through the areas. You start memorizing how to get to each area. And you have separate control of your tank and your turret, so you have to slowly rotate your turret around and take shots at shit. And that's where it goes into that tactical aspect that I was talking about with your aiming. You cannot do fast twitch aiming in this game at all. So you're going to have to really pay attention to your positioning. You're going to be moving very slow because you're in a tank. And it's, it's probably one of the only NES games that I know that's like this. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty unique in that sense. I thought it was quite cool. I mean, now the game does suffer a bit because of that, I think. And the bosses, a lot of them are pretty similar. I think there's a lot of repeat bosses from what I remember, like fighting these turrets. A lot of bosses are recycled. So, like I said, there is a lot of repetition, a lot of the same enemy types and things like that. So the game does falter in some of those areas. But I did really enjoy trying to figure out like a puzzle. Each area was kind of like a puzzle of where to move, how to move through an area. You know, when to kill shit and when to just run away. Because sometimes you can just skip a bunch of enemies. You don't have to fight everything. You just want to make it through the environments, and you have to find that path. And it's kind of cool. It's exciting to discover, you know, a workable path and then, you know, execute it. You learn something every time you die. You know, you always get a little bit farther because you learn your mistakes. It's one of those kind of games, like a lot of old NES games, but it is a satisfying game to put together. Now, this is the weapon menu I was talking about. You saw me just bring that up. And you can kind of check mark all your different weapons, and you can fire as many of them as you want at the same time, up to 4 weapons at the same time, I believe. Which is crazy to do, but it'll fucking obliterate bosses, you know, depending on the fight. So sometimes you do want to do that. You also have something called reserve fuel that you can check mark. That means that if you lose all your health, your reserve fuel kicks in and gives you a full health bar and basically revives you on the spot. But, you know, you don't find those that often, so you don't want to waste them. But in the tutorial, I explain how to exploit some of the item pickups and, you know, how it works exactly, like how the weapons and reserve tanks come back and how checkpoints work and all that. I go into much more detail about that in the tutorial, so check that out if you're more interested in getting more in depth with the game. This was one of the tougher segments. You see me playing it very tactically, using certain things at certain segments of the stage. Very tactical. And a lot of the game is like this. You got to play very tactically, much more careful kind of game. It's not like Contra where you just run and gun through. You know, I mean, now of course you got to memorize those games too, but this is not a fast-paced game at all most of the time. I mean, even at your top speed, you're moving slow as shit. You know what I mean? And you always aim super slow. The turret rotates very slowly. But the boss fights are usually this type of thing where you find a cover spot or you find a safe spot just out of range of the bullets and take out the turret. Or, you know, sometimes you're going to move in, take a shot, and do hit and run tactics where you take your shot, haul ass, then go back around, do the same. The bosses are usually not too complicated. The last boss is pretty tricky, and I will be showing that, the full last boss fight. But yeah, I came to really appreciate this game. I thought it was pretty fucking cool that it was a unique style. I hadn't seen this kind of game before on the NES, so I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, like I said, it takes risks by doing something different, and it does, you know, it suffers some consequences because of that. I mean, it could have been executed better in certain ways, but at the same time, it's pretty unique and cool for what it is. So yeah, there's a decent amount of boss fights throughout the game. Most of it is going to just be traversing various terrain and just figuring out how to progress through. You know, you figure out each enemy you're going to fight and take out and exactly where you're going to move to. It's all about memorizing positioning and learning the order to take out guys, you know, how to dodge shit, stuff like that. Because, you know, like most of these old games, it's completely memorizable. All the patterns repeat. So you can completely memorize a path. And that's what you're going to be doing in this game. That's the main mechanic of the game. But I just thought it was cool that it was kind of a slower paced, more tactical kind of action game. I thought that was pretty interesting. Now this is the hardest section of the entire game. This is pretty fucking ridiculous. I memorized this, of course, but this is by far the hardest part. And this was where I felt the game kind of works against itself, where your tank is a little bit too fucking slow to deal with all this shit on screen. And I had to just memorize how to pull exacting bullshit, very precise bullshit, basically. You know, I knew what hits I was going to take and all that. There was no way I was going to avoid damage. Now, I have seen this game, I have seen that part played much, much slower paced. But, you know, I'm not really a slow paced kind of player. I mean, I do it when I need to beat a game. But a lot of my shit is going to revolve around, you know, doing very precise, fast-moving, aggressive shit. That's just the way I play a lot of games. And I will relentlessly grind until I find the way to do that. You know, even if it means having to find an extremely precise path to get it done. I usually will get it done, but this was one of those cases. But I felt like even though I did pull it off, I did feel like it worked against the game because it was a little bit too slow, the movement of your vehicle and your aiming is a little too slow to manage that kind of insanity, But you see I made it, and this was the next checkpoint. And now this is actually the final checkpoint with the final boss. You'll see how this plays out. This part, if you do it pixel perfect, you can actually squeeze through. I don't think I didn't do it here, but there is a way to squeeze through that if you do it pixel perfect. I think I was just taking the hit there because I knew what I was doing at this point as far as I knew I could take the damage. But the pixel perfect trick is kind of hard to pull off. So now for this first part, I guess this is going to be a half-assed tutorial in my review. But for the first part, you kind of creep around and take out these turrets carefully. But this does kind of represents the kind of style that you fight a lot of bosses. You creep around, you find those perfect positions where you can pull that bullshit and get those shots in without the enemy being able to hit you. So it's like this pixel perfect creeping that you do a lot of times. And you do that on a lot of bosses. So, I mean, it does kind of represent what's in the game. And you're also going to see an example of me blowing my complete load on this boss coming up inside the building, where I fire all my weapons at once, which wastes all the fucking ammo. Now, I don't remember what happens if I completely die, if that ammo is completely gone. It may be, or it may respawn at the if I put the password back in. I forgot how that works exactly. But I'm pretty sure I cover all that in my tutorial, which I'm going to link in the description. Remember, I beat this a little while ago. It probably was over a year ago, if I'm guessing. But it was definitely some months ago. It was a while ago. So this review is a little bit late. But what I'm doing now is I'm doing these, what I call quick reviews, because I'm just editing down my playthroughs. Some of them are like 30-minute long reviews, but I consider them quick because they're quick for me to make. I edit out, I just edit out key parts of my playthroughs from beginning to end, and I edit out all the key parts, and I shorten them down, and then I'll just put commentary over it, That's basically what I do for these reviews. So they're very easy for me to make. I have over 800 playthroughs on the channel, so I have a lot of content to choose from. And I just started doing reviews, so I'm going to pick games that I think are worth reviewing and that I have some knowledge about. Not games that I just beat really fast and didn't really... like fighting games that I just did cheap moves and stuff. I don't really want to review those kind of games because I don't know them. But look, see here, I highlight all the weapons at once, I believe. And, well, I think maybe first I start with just this one weapon because this form is easy. So I don't think I blow my complete load just yet. But you'll see it's all positioning. It's not really that hard, but you got to really know what to do on each part. So now here I think I'm going to start highlighting all my weapons, but let's see. See, now I'm highlighting all 4 weapons, and now I'm firing all 4 weapons at once at the next form. Watch what this shit does. See, when you know what to do, you can really tear this boss up. And I'm still positioned on that diagonal all the way in the right, and that's really just destroying shit. So here I'm doing it again, firing all 4 weapons at once. And it just completely tore the boss up. So, using that strategy, which I will explain in the tutorial and, hopefully guide you through the game, I think for these reviews, the tutorial is going to be a nice little companion piece to playing the game. It'll make it more enjoyable, at least entertaining to go through the game and see what my thought process was as I got to each part. So overall, I'm going to give this game a 7 out of 10, a very solid, good game for the NES.